Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana. Jamana Hiravana Chadi. Jamanati Ravana Chadi. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari-Acharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 10, Chapter 35, verses, what happened here? 14 and 15. Something happened. Okay. Here's the translation for 14:15. Maybe we need a little refresher what we're doing here. Chapter 35 is the Song of the Gopis, a celebrated section, where they're feeling separation from Krishna, and they wish to soothe their feelings, and they're doing this by speaking verses, reciting the glories of Krishna. ended this way, being connected with Krishna, feeling somewhat pacified until he returns in the evening. So in this particular combination, 14-15, they are either addressing Mother Yashoda in her presence, or they're thinking of her as if she's present. And the two verses read, "O pious mother, Yashoda, your son, who is expert in all the arts of herding cows, has invented many new styles of flute playing. When he takes his flute to his bimba-red lips and sends forth the tones of the harmonic scale in variegated melodies, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other chief demigods become confused upon hearing the sound. Although they are the most learned authorities, they cannot ascertain the essence of that music, and thus they bow down their heads and hearts." If you remember from Thursday morning, we began discussing a little bit, and we're going to continue this morning, the the relationship between, something happened, the relationship between the presiding deities of the senses and the resident of Vrindavan. So the reference goes to Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 33, and this is Brahma's prayers to Krishna. He's in Vrindavan. He's seen the Brahma Vimohan. He's been a participant in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, and now he's glorifying Krishna and the residents of Braja specifically. O infallible Lord, so it's text 33, chapter 14. O infallible Lord, what can be said of the great fortune of the people of Braja? We, the deities of the directions, are also fortunate. Headed by Shiva, we constantly drink through the cups of our senses the nectar and liquor from your lotus feet. And this is Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary. How is it possible to describe the glory of the people of Braja? We, Brahma, and the demigods in charge of the senses, we have become successful by having a relationship with them. We drink the sweet nectar of your feet in the form of hearing, seeing, and through vows of concentration on being his servant. 13 devatas, so the mention is 11. There's 13 devatas found in Canto 3, and so 2 are eliminated, are the 13 it explains. The 13 devatas are Brahma, Shiva, Chandra, the directions Vayu, Surya, Varuna, Ashvinis, Agni, Indra, Upendra, Mitra, and Prajapati. Now, when we discussed chapter 14, we went through all this. There was a PowerPoint presentation showing these 13 with 11 and who is in charge of what. But the the explanation given in Canto 3 is there's multiple layers of sarga, visarga. So there's sense objects, and there's sense organs, and there's the power of sense. And there's demigods controlling the power of the sense. And then there's reality. So in Canto 3, it describes the demigods. It's all set up. The creation has been set up by Brahma, but they can't do anything. And so they offer prayers to the personality of Godhead, who appears as the presiding deity of Chitta, and then they can do their work. That is to say, negatively, even demigods cannot do their work controlling the senses, for example, without Vasudeva or Krishna. So for conditioned souls, that's us, our senses cannot function without the empowered personalities. The demigods in charge of the senses receive their power from, guess who? From the personality of Godhead. And then they do their thing. And without their doing their thing, if the power of sense is withdrawn, because the demigods may choose to withdraw the power of sense, then you can't perceive with any one of the senses. And they can't do their thing, even they have power to do their thing, without Krishna or Vasudeva. So that's the reference. There's 13 of these personalities, demigods in charge of the senses. However, it goes down to 13, from 13 to 11, because Mitra and Prajapati, in charge of the anus and genitals, are excluded for being unsuitable and vulgar. Thus, the devatas are mentioned as 11. The deity of the feet, Upendra, is an Avesha avatar of the Lord's supporting Shakti. This is a special devata, according to some. And then, without the deity of Chitta, Vasudeva, the rest were not able to act according to the third canto. And then an interesting sentence. Vasudeva also derives happiness in proximity to Krishna. Now, in one sense, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is Krishna. But Krishna in Vrindavan is not Vasudeva Krishna. Yes? Vasudeva Krishna is in Mathura, and Swami Bhagavan Krishna, Govinda, etc. is in... So, Vasudeva derives happiness in proximity to Krishna. Because the cowherds are eternal spiritual entities of the Lord, the cowherds are eternal spiritual entities of the Lord. They have spiritual forms. It would be impossible for the devatas with material bodies to act as their sense deities. However, Brahma speaks by identifying himself with the other devatas, and the other devatas with the eternal devatas. What's the eternal devatas? Situated around the Lord in the spiritual sky, those eternal devatas of the spiritual world are empowered by the Lord. Padma Purana says, quote, the heavenly beings, such as the Sajas, Maruts, and Vishvadevas, and their abodes are all eternal in the spiritual world. In the material world, these same devatas are not eternal. If you can recall from Brahma Samhita, some similar things are described in the first 5 verses of Brahma Samhita. The abode of Goloka is described in very interesting ways. And similar to what's being said right here from Padma Purana, Brahma Samhita says, the 10 directions and this and that and the other thing, the tridents, and all those things have to do, there are counterparts in the material world, but they exist in Goloka. So back to this. There are spiritual devatas. Now Krishna doesn't need anything, but they're there. And the ones in this world, they're expansions or counterparts or reflections of those in the spiritual realm. So now back to the text. Brahma, according to Vishwanath, Brahma is identifying himself with those spiritual devatas. We, the 11 presiding deities of the senses, he's referring to the spiritual devatas. Well, it's explained. Because Vasudeva is eternal in both cases, he acts as the devata of the senses, chitta, in the material world, but is not an enjoyer like the rest of the devatas, meaning the ones in the material world. This is the analysis of Vasudeva's body paragraph. Since the cowherds are spiritual associates of Krishna, they are already endowed with all powers. They do not need sense devatas for their senses. This is indicated in the scriptures describing worship of Krishna. Just as the deities of the anus and genital were rejected for being vulgar, the experience of happiness derived from the cowherd's senses by the material devatas of the senses should be rejected. Therefore, the explanation of this verse is as follows. And it gives 2, and I'm going to give a 3rd one, because from other references it gives the 3rd one. Here's how to understand, according to Vishwanath. Brahma rejoices at the good fortune of the people of Vraja by his temporary attainment of sweetness in order to praise their good fortune as being so much greater. By this, he makes his own aspiration firmer. Again, he's come to Braja, he's experienced Braja, he's feeling wowed by the residents of Braja and their unique qualities. And so he's expressing, we're able to enjoy a sweetness that otherwise is not accessible to us, devatas, in our normal business. Here's a second explanation Vishwanath provides. Eka dasha can mean 11, or it can mean, quote, incomparable 10 deities of the directions, unquote. These are famous in Braja, mentioned in Brahma Samhita, deities of the 10 directions. So, northeast, southwest, that's the called cardinal directions, the ordinal directions of northeast, southeast, etc. And then there's up and down. That's 10. So, in Braja, there's spiritual 10 directions. These are famous in Braja. These devatas drink the sweetness of your lotus feet, using the cups of their senses with devotion and ability. Headed by Shiva, he's one of the sense deities in this world, and there's a spiritual Shiva in Krishna Loka. Headed by Shiva, who is the head deity of the directions, we come and drink here repeatedly the sweetness. It will be said, text 22, his feet are worshipped on the path by the devatas. That's coming up. Text 22. Now, before coming down, I had all this saved, and it somehow shut down. So I'm going to go to read text, Canto 10, Chapter 35, text 22, which reads, out of great affection for the cows of Vraja, Krishna became the lifter of Govardhan Hill. At the end of the day, having rounded up all his own cows, he plays a song on his flute, while exalted demigods standing along the path worship his lotus feet, and the cowherd boys accompanying him chant his glories. This is a gopi speaking about Krishna's Govardhan Lila, his flute playing, and then how that affects the demigods, who, as Krishna's returning back home at the end of the day. And while exalted demigods standing along the path worship his lotus feet, and the cowherd boys accompany him by chanting his glories. So now, back to our text here. Okay. So now I'll just read for continuity's sake. Or Ekadasha can mean, quote, incomparable 10 deities of the directions. These are famous in Braja. These devatas drink the sweetness of your lotus feet using the cups of their senses with devotion and ability. Headed by Shiva, who is the head deity of the directions, we come and drink here repeatedly the sweetness. It will be said, quote, his feet are worshipped on the path by the devatas. Vishwanath is indicating that's the 10 direction devatas, not the presiding deities of the senses devatas. Or it's the devatas of the spiritual realm. That's, he's identifying himself in that way. There's a third explanation that another one of the acharyas gives, and that is the Brijbasis are merciful. And they know that the presiding deities of the senses don't have the capacity, as they do, to experience Krishna's sweetness. So they empower the material senses, the deities of the senses, through their senses to experience Krishna's sweetness. That's a third explanation. Should I say them again? The first one that he suggests is that by special mercy, Brahma has experienced sweetness in his appreciation, expressing that sweetness he has experienced. He's saying we sometimes get some special benediction from the demigod, from the residents of Vrindavan, by coming to Vrindavan and experiencing that sweetness, they're special. Another is, it's the 10 direction devatas instead of 11. And the third is, which they can, because they have their spiritual bodies, but those that have the material bodies, the third category is, we cannot, which means apparently the demigods not only control senses of people in this world, but they experience something. Now, there was some discussion that I read. They don't really, but they're aware of what one is experiencing, but they're not experiencing. But in the case of the cowherd people, Brajbasis, they're experiencing, but the demigods can't. But the Brajbasis are so merciful, they empower the demigods of the senses to experience through their senses the sweetness of Krishna. 3 options. And then Vishwanath makes mention of text 15, which we already read. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other chief demigods become confused upon hearing the sound of his flute. Although they are most learned authorities, they cannot ascertain the essence of that music, and thus they bow down their heads and hearts. And then the section ends. What is the nature of that beverage? That's the elixir from his flute. And he explains, since it is most tasty, it is called nectar. Since it is most intoxicating, it is called liquor. The 2 words are a dvandava compound, thus indicating one item. Or they can be taken separately. The liquor and the nectar are drunk by the cups of the senses. Those who are liberated, amrita, become intoxicated with this liquor. The next, there's 2 more references. This again is reference to verses 15. The demigods can't understand Krishna's flute playing. And this text 22, when Krishna is coming back after the Govardhan Leela, playing upon his flute, the demigods are along the path. So a different reference is, I'm sure, well, those that were attending the Sunday lecture will recognize this verse as I read the translation. It's the Tapta Jivanam. The nectar of your topics is the life of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, praised by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are most excellent and are broadcast all over the world. Those who speak these topics are the greatest benefactors. Krishna to the gopis. Then why are you still living? The gopis describe the cause by describing the glory of topics of Krishna produced through prema according to one's feelings. Your topics are like nectar, being the result and the means of attaining any result. The form of those topics is delineated. They gave life to those suffering the pains of separation from you. What to speak of those suffering the pains of samsara? They protect one even from death. Those topics were the life of previous personalities. And then reference to text 22, the previous personalities. Out of great affection for the cows of Raja, Krishna became the lifter of Govardhan hill. This is text 22 of this chapter. At the end of the day, having rounded up all his own cows, he plays a song on his flute while exalted demigods, standing along the path, worship his lotus feet, and the cowherd boys accompanying him chant his glories. And then reference to verse 15. When he takes his flute to his bimba red lips and sends forth the tones of the harmonic scale in variegated melodies, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other chief devatas become confused upon hearing the sound. Although they are most learned authorities, they cannot ascertain the essence of that music, and thus they bow down their heads and hearts. Paragraph. These topics are praised by, that's the tava katamritam, tapta jivanam. These topics are praised by Brahma, Shiva, the Kumaras, and Atmaramas. What to speak of others? Even now, the topics are praised. What we describe, they can only repeat. On their own, they cannot describe these topics, since they are so confidential. The topics destroy all misfortunes and even self-induced obstacles. What to speak of sin and piety, present in samsara because of their great power of attractiveness and other qualities. Though this is so, just by hearing the topics, they produce all possible benefits. What to speak of what happens if one hears and considers the meaning? The topics are most excellent, Shri Mat, and spread everywhere. The uniqueness is caused by their famous sweetness. Those who speak these topics on earth are the givers of all benefits to everyone. Then those topics should give life to us gopis, suffering the pains of separation from you in Gokula. Thus, Brahma and others outside of Braja and the people of Braja are our special friends. Krishna considers, until I agree, you can pass your time speaking topics about me. Then they take another mood. Your topics are our death. Kata mritam. Those topics will destroy us. Why? They give pain to our lives, like adding water to boiling oil. Your followers praise your topics, saying they can destroy sin. We have heard that those topics are auspicious, though we have not experienced that. Those topics are spread by persons who are proud because of their beauty, Srimad, who are disrespectful to the devotees. Those who speak these topics are great destroyers of life. Buri, da. The verb do means to destroy. These topics give intense pain. What are the use of those topics to us who desire to live for a moment with hopes that you will bless us? And later on the same chapter, the gopis are accusing Krishna to be a cheater. Who but a cheater like you, this is 10:31:16, who but a cheater like you would abandon young women who come to see you in the middle of the night, enchanted by the loud song of your flute, though you know the nature of your flute, and though we have completely rejected our husbands, children, mothers, fathers, and brothers to come to you, O Achyuta? Commentary. In spite of all this, what you have done today is most improper. We have ignored the instructions of our mothers and fathers, brothers, sons, and husbands at the very root by ignoring all dharma and giving up affection for them. we have come because we were bewildered by the loud song. We were like deer bewildered by a hunter. This was not an accident, for you knew the power of the flute. You knew that we would come. Krishna, you are most sober women. How could you gopis be bewildered just by a flute? Gopis, you knew the special method of the song. Even the devatas become bewildered. This chapter, text 15. The demigods hearing the song become bewildered. That's what we've been discussing. Krishna to the gopis, you are clever. You know my nature. Why were you not careful? Gopis, though we know your nature, we became enchanted by that song, since it is actually some bewitching mantra. Let that be. What person would reject women whom he has personally brought in the middle of the night? No one would do this. Therefore, O cheater, would even a cheater reject us? Your behavior shows why everybody calls you a cheater. O Achyuta, you do not waver from your nature. You are called this because of your cheating quality. And that's it for this morning. So I skipped over the Rasa Lila section, but here it is in these commentaries to enhance the topic of Krishna's flute playing. The emotions of the gopis are hard to understand. I mean, certainly from a material point of view. On the one hand and on the other hand, they can't stand to be with him. They can't stand to be without him. When he calls and sends them away, they speak insulting things. It works. But he enjoys when they speak like that, because it's out of love, it's not out of disdain. Very amazing qualities of the gopis. And they're one of their principal attractions, just as we were reading yesterday from text 56 of Brahma Samhita, the dear companion of Krishna, the flute, very special flute. And its effect on everybody, what to speak of the effect on the gopis, but the gopis are appreciating its effect on everyone. Here in this verse, they're speaking to Mother Jasoda, somehow confidentially revealing their feelings, or not revealing their personal feelings, just expressing what happens when Krishna plays his flute. Even the demigods are bewildered. The knowers of the science of music are bewildered. They never heard anything like this. So then, implied is what to speak of us, who aren't so qualified like that. But they're the most qualified. They're not qualified by knowledge of the science of music, but they're qualified in a different way, more important way. So we're back to Canto 10. Festival of Holy Name is over, back to hearing about Krishna and Vrindavan. Let's see if there's any discussion.
Maharaj, in the beginning, you read about relationship of gopis with Krishna, and so I could not catch that point. It is based on what? Due to their past karma or what?
What is it that you don't understand?
That means their relationship based upon what? Due to their past karma or?
Who?
or the austerity of gopis with Krishna.
You think the gopis have past karma? That's what you're asking?
And that relationship, how could they get so sweet with Krishna?
How do they get to associate with Krishna? That's your question?
Yes. It is based on what? Austerity or pastime?
Well,
Pastime.
by becoming perfected souls. By becoming perfected souls, or they're eternally perfected souls in a particular mood of love for Krishna. All the residents of Vrindavan have a mood of love for Krishna, and the gopis have a particular mood of love for Krishna. That's why they're in that category of gopis, and they become perfected, or they're eternally perfect. Sadhana-siddha or nitya-siddha. It's okay?
Another question, Maharaj, that about Vasudeva. Vasudeva, you said, you read Krishna in Mathura and is not same as Krishna in Gokul. And Vasudeva also, you read, and also I had come across one somewhere by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I think. He's telling that it is the transcendental position.
He's the which of which?
Transcendental position.
Transcendental position.
Position of a devotee in Visuddha Sattva. In Visuddha Sattva.
I don't follow what you're saying. Can someone help out?
Yeah.
He's saying Vasudeva. You mentioned that Vasudeva is in Mathura and Vrindavan Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan.
Yes.
He's saying that I've also heard Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur say that the Vasudeva position is a transcendental position that one achieves.
Yes.
And
So-
that's the position in Vishuddha Sattva.
Well, it's Vasudev, one can achieve that position. Vasudev, not Vasudev. Vasudev is pure consciousness. And Krishna appears in the mind of one who is in Vasudev state. And then he's called Vasudev. Okay? Anything else in the room? Otherwise, we're going to online.
Guru Maharaj, there was a mention that these topics destroy self-induced obstacles, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
I was curious about that myself. What self-induced obstacles? I mean, I could suggest some categories of self-induced obstacles, but what his intention is, can't say. That's, just some obvious one. Someone that develops an addiction. A self-induced obstacle. They didn't have to, but they went down that path and now they have an obstacle. Yeah. Which topic?
Of the self-induced obstacles, I was remembering your narration from Madhurya Kadambini yesterday, in which you were describing Taranga Rangini as one of the anarthas or categories or situations that a sadhaka goes through, or the attraction to labha, puja and pratishtha. They naturally come about by bhakti, but one this is how I'm understanding that by becoming attracted to them or holding on to them, one creates hurdles for oneself. So I'm seeking if that's one way to understand it.
I guess it's the same because it's self-induced. That is to say, one doesn't have to become, but the conditioned state, one has an attraction to be the enjoyer. And something that arises from bhakti, I want to be the enjoyer. It's just a material tendency. So, using the example that I used, an addiction, it's a self-induced, it's a choice. So there's some comparison, sure. One's darker and one's more subtle, but self-induced, sure. Subal, you have something?
Guru Maharaj, I appreciated very much how you waved some part of the presentation this morning in relationship to yesterday. In the Sunday feast, you mentioned from the verse, a Tapta Jivanam verse, that the gopis were in the mood of Lord Chaitanya when they were speaking concerning about the suffering people in the world and how the nectar of the narrations, can free them from that suffering. So they in that mood of Lord Chaitanya and concerning for suffering of others. And then Lord Brahma, in this verse, what you read, appreciating that his experience, the sweetness of Krishna, the nectar, because the Brijavasis are extending themselves are extending their experience for them, for him, and for others. So that situation of experience, Krishna consciousness because of the devotees.
Because of?
Because of the experience of the devotees. Sometimes, when we are in association of devotees, you experience something very special. And that moment of association changes, it gives that experience. And then we have to go out and share that experience, but obviously we're not in that level like the Rasika devotees or advanced devotees or the Brijavasis. We still have to share something, but that something is also mixed with, it's not pure. So how do you make sure that there is a transparent,
Make sure that there's
a transparent, or at least that you're being transparent in sharing that pure experience?
Okay. Two things. One is just a little editing. Lord Chaitanya adopted the mood of the gopis, not the gopis adopted the mood of Lord Chaitanya. Or he exhibited the mood of the gopis, not vice versa. But the other part is, this question came during our weekend together. When we're acting as a distributor of the blessings of bhakti, I forget exactly how the question was worded, but how to not become deluded and and intoxicated by that, thinking we're achieving something or something like that. It's the mood of being the instrument. Maybe it was a Tullia's question. I can't remember exactly. Yes? So the protection is being the instrument. And the attractiveness is not us, the attractiveness is bhakti. And we're an instrument of bhakti. There's the buridha, the giver of benediction. But it's not I'm the benedictor. I'm an instrument of the benedictor. The instrument of Lord Chaitanya, who is in the mood of the gopis, who, although they're in this most exalted position, they're nonetheless concerned about people who are undergoing samsara and, miseries. So it's not a savior consciousness or a doer consciousness, it's an instrument consciousness on behalf of those who actually have those proper feelings and mood, act as an instrument of them. That's Sankirtan. Those of us that have involved ourselves in book distribution to some degree, we understand that's the experience. Or the material is, I'm going to go sell some books. And the spiritual is somehow being an instrument of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And it's subjectively, and the outcome is altogether different. Okay? You want to say something further?
Just follow up. Short.
I want to give a little example because it's fresh. It's a good example. One time this is in New York, there was a devotee who was like super duper book distributor. And there was this arrangement that they took us to the airport. JFK. It was illegal to distribute, but we did it anyways. Kind of snuck around. But in this case, it wasn't sneaking around. There's like 5 or 6 of us learning from the example of this book distributor. And during a certain period of time, everyone was saying no, saying no, saying no, saying no. Then the devotee turned to us and said, I know why. Because I'm in the consciousness that I'm going to distribute the book, the doer consciousness, whatever that language was. And when they moved from that to the instrument consciousness, everyone was saying yes, yes, yes. I mean, it doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes you're in good consciousness and they're saying no, and there's some other reason. But it's a totally, the difference between material and spiritual is to access the realm of spiritual, you have to be in the mood of service. And without the mood of service, we're not going to understand Krishna. We disconnect with Krishna. And it becomes illusion of different varieties of illusion. So bhakti reveals Krishna. That's the point. Go ahead.
I'm just reflecting on the experience that I had, especially with Harinam. I know that the experience of Harinam makes me very happy, has made me very happy. So there is that experience that I have, achieved or something given to me. And when it's out there, I like to share that happiness.
You like?
To share that happiness.
Good.
So now I'm conscious that happiness that I've experienced, maybe that's what I was, thinking. Maybe there would be something material about it, maybe because I like music or I like to perform or something. So that may be mixed. But however, it's a happy experience and I like to share it. And then people seems to be happy when, they see you happy.
Yeah.
So
it's contagious.
That's, in one sense, that's what, trying or right for what is asking for us, right?
That refining that, you say happiness or the sentiment in carrying out our service, that's our spiritual path. To be spiritual means that. To refine the experience and the sentiments connected with our service. That's our task. That's our program. Go ahead.
From your reading, an appreciation or a new insight that has helped me. The gopis, while they are hearing Krishna's flute song, they're also facilitating for the demigods of the 10 directions to experience what normally or otherwise they would not experience.
Yeah.
So I was particularly appreciating even more how disciplic succession and descending mercy has that, I guess it's the spirit of passing on that mercy, not just I'm in ecstasy and the others can't get it. And so we are being, at least I know for sure, we're being beneficiaries of the experiences that exalted devotees are having, and we're getting also a little bit of that experience, which otherwise we may not have access to.
Directly from hearing from our acharyas like this is an example. They're experiencing something we don't have access to, but hearing of their experience of what they have access to is very stimulating.
Yeah.
That there's a potency, and it just exactly what that verse says. It drives away misery, etc.
Yeah. So there are two questions online.
Okay.
First is from Sanchari. Is it fair to say that Krishna liked Radharani's wing of gopis more than Chandravali's?
Yes.
Shatarupa is asking, I'm trying to understand the Rishichari gopis.
The which?
Rishichari.
Rishichari gopis, okay.
Yeah. Are they sadhaka siddhas?
Are they sadhana siddhas? I don't know what else we would call them.
And is it that this is a pastime that happened in earthly pastimes with Lord Ramachandra and went back to Godhead as gopis?
They were already back to Godhead by being part of Krishna's pastimes. That's back to Godhead. Not like some other mailing address. They're back to Godhead. Okay.
There's one more question that came in. This is from Visalaksha. What lessons should I learn from such exalted devotees like gopis?
Like?
The gopis.
Such exalted devotees like?
The gopis.
The gopis. What lessons? Get on board. Become qualified. Appreciate, and by that appreciation, elevate. That's the lesson. Prabhupada ki jai.